free agency has changed a lot.
Mhm.
We made our first mock draft prior to the combine, prior
Mhm.
to free agency. So there's a lot of stuff that has changed. There's a lot of stuff we've seen in players that could potentially raise their draft stock. Now, the
Right.
combine doesn't raise somebody's draft stock in multiple rounds. Like, you don't take a test and get an A on it if you're failing a class and automatically jump up to an A, right?
Right.
It
Right.
takes a lot of A's to get back to that A that you have once had before you
Right.
failed
Right.
that test. It's the same in football. If somebody is in the seventh round, they're not going to automatically have a ball out combine and go up to the first round. It takes time. Now, if you're in late first round or early second round and you ball out in the combine, you might move up to the first round or early first round. That can happen. A lot of people are saying, like, who broke the combine record for the
Yeah.
40,
Xavier. Xavier
Xavier
Worthy.
Worthy
Xavier Worthy.
is going to be in the first round. Now, you can't teach speed, but I think
I
his
don't necessarily.
counterpart is
I don't know
better.
if the
I think
film.
his
I don't know if the
counterpart is
film.
better.
I don't know if the film backs up the first round.
I,
The first round. Draft grade and whatnot. The film does not necessarily back up, and the tape. I mean, okay, speed kills, and you can't teach speed.
you can't.
But we do have to acknowledge the aspect of you got to have film that backs up what it is, and we're so enamored with the numbers that people post at the combines, and this is that and the other. But the reality of it is, yeah, but we have to see them in actual game, like game speed, game and game situation. That's one of the things that gets me is that a lot of people get so caught up in, okay, well, they posted these numbers and so forth and whatnot. Test good, that's great, but does your film back up what it is that you're putting out there? And sometimes there's some people that actually are really good at testing, and there's some people that aren't good at testing. But the film, men lie, women lie, the film doesn't.
Now, CJ Stroud was awful at his test, and that's why he didn't get number one overall. That's why the Panthers didn't want to choose him. They didn't think he had the football IQ to be their franchise quarterback. And then guess what? He gets drafted number two overall, and what does he do? Take his team to the playoffs.
Takes the teams to the playoffs, rookie of the year. And he's in such a great situation because that Houston team, they have such a young nucleus and they have so much young talent with great coaching. They're just going to build and build and build. They have the opportunity to again compete for that AFC South division. And again, CJ Stroud, he is going to be in the talk for NFL MVP pretty soon. We have to acknowledge his talent and where he's at with D'Amico Ryans, with all of that talent that's there. This team is going to be eventually. This team is going to be competing for a Super Bowl. So we got to acknowledge that.
So let's go into my original scenario I had planned out for the number one overall pick. Chicago Bears before the combine had a lot of pieces they had before in the prior year. Okay. It was a decision if they wanted to roll with Justin Fields or they wanted to start fresh, start new. Well, they started doing a lot to build around a quarterback, and we didn't know who it was going to be yet. They started making moves. Were they going to build around Justin Fields like they should have in the first place, or were they going to build around a new quarterback and have him in the best situation possible for the first number one overall pick? We see that Justin Fields gets traded. So originally, I had the Falcons trading up to the number one overall pick, and they were going to get Caleb Williams because they hadn't signed a quarterback. Well, they signed Kirk Cousins, right? So Chicago has basically put all of their eggs in the basket saying, hey, we're going to draft a quarterback at number one, probably Caleb Williams. Probably Caleb Williams. So my original pick was Caleb Williams to the Falcons. And my new pick for the number one overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the Chicago Bears will stick with Caleb Williams. They have traded for Keenan Allen, somebody that had 1,200 yards receiving last year. He's 31. He's on the wrong side of 30, but he's still productive. And we'll get into how they can find a replacement for their wide receivers. They're going to keep Jay Moore. He had a productive season. They're building around Caleb Williams so perfectly right now that they want this to be the best possible situation a number one overall pick has ever gotten into, and I think they're doing a very good job of it.
I like it. Let's go. Come on, cook. Let's get some gravy.
Well, let's go to the number two.
All right.
Now, the Commanders are on the clock. You have somebody. Do you remember who the OC for the Commanders was last season?
Eric Bieniemy was the OC for the Commanders last year.
Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, but once an offensive coordinator has established an offense for a couple years and they get fired or released or let go or they part ways, whatever happens, there is still that offense that is still going to be lingering into the next season. Would you agree with that?
Yes, very much.
Okay. Well, who is here to pick up the pieces of that Eric Bieniemy offense? Let me rephrase that. Who did the Commanders sign to replace Eric Bieniemy? Do you remember? Now, and I'll answer that question myself if you can't answer it for me. They signed somebody who is an expert in Heisman's. Now, my original pick is Jayden Daniels.
Yes.
For the Commanders. Now, you have Jayden Daniels, who just won a Heisman this past season. You just brought in a dude that has arguably produced the most Heismans out of anybody in college football. And who is that, Nate? Does it ring a bell yet? Is it coming to your memory? Who the Commanders have signed?
No, who
for the new OC?
Who they signed?
They decided to pick up Cliff Kingsbury after he had just been at USC with Caleb Williams, helped him in his Heisman year, and now he's going back. So, Heisman man, the guy who's producing all these Heisman, why can't he produce an NFL quarterback like Kyler Murray, who already won a Heisman? And I think he did a good job with Kyler Murray. So, my new pick, I'm sticking with Jayden Daniels.
All right, I like that.
Draft Jayden Daniels.
Okay, who's number 3? New England's number 3, right? Are they 3 or 4?
Yeah, they are 3. Do you have anything to say on this?
I like it. I like this pick. I'm curious to see your number 3 pick right now because it can go in 2 different directions. So I'm curious to see how this goes.
So I have a little trade. I agree. Daniels in the Kingsbury offense is the best fit. That's why he will go number 2 overall. Now, Kingsbury was there before free agency, so that's why I like Daniels there. He stays. We'll get into some like trade scenarios in the 4th pick. Now, I did not want to add any trades to this. It's so difficult to try and predict what a team is thinking, how they view a prospect, if they're going to trade up. The Giants traded up like 2 spots to get like Deonte Banks last draft. 2 spots. And so it's very difficult to try and guess if somebody's going to move up 1 spot or 2 spots, or like I just can't do it. So I'm not going to do any picks. I did that first overall pick the last mock draft. So in my last mock draft, my number 3rd overall pick was Drake May. The Patriots, they trade Mac Jones. He's a backup for Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. They want to start over. They want to start fresh. Now, the Patriots need a quarterback. Mm-hmm. Do the Patriots trade back and get one of the later quarterbacks? I can't do that. There's no way you can do that. You can speak. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off.
I don't know. I don't see them doing that, but at that same time, this isn't like in my opinion, this isn't a really good quarterback draft. That's just my opinion.
I like it.
I like the talent that's coming out, but I mean, Drake May, if he's the guy and he's right there at the number 3 pick, you cannot pass that up unless the team is going to give you the house and so forth. But again, quarterback is the most important position on the team, and you have a new head coach. He has to establish, a new regime. You're going away from the greatest coach of all time in Bill Belichick. He has to go ahead and start. Jared has to go ahead and start, to carve out his own identity and what he's gotten playing for the New England Patriots. So I like this pick.
Well, this is my original pick. I ain't got to my new pick. My new pick, I'm sticking with Drake May. Drake, you picked the best available. Some people are saying he's the best quarterback in this draft class. I think Jayden Daniels is. If he's the best, the Patriots will think he's the best as well. Drake May stays. Jack was getting a little stressed with that pick. They picked Drake May. This is probably the most conservative pick in the draft, as in the Patriots if Jaden Daniels drops to 3, Caleb Williams, Drake May drops to 3, I think they will get a good quarterback either way. I think Drake May will be good. I'd love to see him sit behind somebody for a year, but that's just not possible with these top 3 picks. So I digress. Let's go into the next one. Now, originally had the Cardinals trade back with the Chicago Bears for the 4th overall pick. I'm saying the Cardinals keep the 4th overall pick. Now, there are talks that the Vikings traded for the Houston's 23rd overall pick in the first round. Yes. Now, there are talks that the Vikings see value in a certain quarterback that they want to trade up to the number 4 spot to make sure that they can get that quarterback that they so highly desire. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. Now, people are saying they desire J.J. McCarthy. When I get to the Vikings pick, I will tell you why J.J. McCarthy will not be a Minnesota Viking. But until we get there, okay, he said the Patriots could absolutely sit there for you.
Could I throw in a possible scenario?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody said anything about this, but a possible scenario is Kyler Murray being traded from Arizona.
Now we could see
possible.
We could see the Vikings going ahead and trading their number 11th overall pick for Kyler Murray. I could see that. I could see that they do that. There's a lot of trade scenarios, and I think if there's a trade scenario that's going to happen, the Cardinals are going to be the ones that make the trade happen. We've seen it in past drafts. They are still in rebuild mode. They are not content. They want more draft capital. They want to become the Oklahoma City Thunder of the NFL, and that's what they're going to do. So let's just say my original pick was Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Chicago Bears at number 4. Let's say the Cardinals keep the pick. Now, you don't need a quarterback. There's no sense in other than Kyler Murray not watching film and playing Call of Duty when the new Call of Duty game releases, there's not much terrible with Kyler Murray. I mean, Kyler Murray's good. I would take Kyler Murray in New Orleans. I would take him for Derek Carr in a heartbeat for New Orleans. And that's just my opinion. So let's keep Kyler Murray being Kyler Murray. His best wide receiver was Hollywood Brown last year. Let's give him something else. Let's stay with the new pick, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals at number 4. Let's just keep that. Let's stay conservative.
Okay. I like that.
And there you won't have to trade Kyler Murray. You'll keep him, and then you'll give him more numbers. And he was injured last year, so it's not like he was regressing any. So with the number 5 pick, and this is so interesting because I've watched a lot of stuff about this. Now, who did the Chargers decide to hire after they fired their last coach?
They hired Jim Harbaugh. I say though, let's not say his name because Kenny might choke me.
Now, Jim Harbaugh is the new head coach to the Los Angeles now? Yeah, it's Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about this. He just won a national championship with what quarterback that is in this draft class?
Yeah, Jay McCarthy, but that'll be the stupidest move in his career if he ever did that.
That's not what I'm saying. He's got a quarterback. He's in salesman mode, Nate. This is what Jim Harbaugh is doing. He's going, look, if you want the best pure quarterback in this draft class, go ahead and take him. Trade from the number 5 spot.
Mm-hmm.
We will trade back with you. Acquire more draft capital, and you can have that best quarterback in that draft class.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of if somebody will bite. Now, he's baiting the hook. He's reeling it out. He's casting it out. He's reeling in just a little bit, slowly but surely, and he's waiting for something to bite so he can just nag it out the water and catch it. But for the sake of this mock draft,
I see that. That's a more realistic trade right there. Somebody trading into the top 5 for if they wanted, say, a J.J. McCarthy, a quarterback hungry team. I can see them trading that pick away, and that would be a smart acquisition right there for Jim Harbaugh. You know, again, because you have a quarterback in Justin Herbert. You have one of the top 10 best quarterbacks in the league in Justin Herbert. That this was the number 5 pick. This can be some draft capital.
Now, I had Brock Bowers as my original pick, and in free agency, the Chargers are pretty content. They restructured Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa's contracts to keep them on the team. They released Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, but they have pretty good wide receivers behind them. Joshua Palmer isn't bad. And who they draft last year, Quentin Johnson, he's not bad. I actually got that right on my mock. I think it's like one of the 4 picks I got right in last
Yeah,
year.
he's from TCU, if I'm not mistaken, right? Quentin.
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. TCU, you're right. So he's pretty content. I don't see him drafting a wide receiver at 5. Other than running back now, they signed Gus Edwards, they lost Austin Eckler, and their tight end, they signed Will Dissly. Is Will Dissly a starting tight end? Let's be for real. Is he a starting tight end in the NFL?
Can't necessarily say he is, but I can't say he isn't because I mean, there's some guys that starting in a league where it's just like eyebrow raisers, but they fit with what their team needs and whatnot, so they produce. You know, they're in good situations, so we can't knock them.
So let's draft the tight end that you know can produce and one of the most interesting tight end prospects of all time. Let's go with Brock Bowers. Let's keep it for the new pick. Jim Harbaugh's pretty content. I think Will Dissly will be more of his blocking tight end, and Brock Bowers will be more of that receiver as you have just released Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Let's stick with Brock Bowers.
Okay.
So we go into the Giants. And originally, I had Joe Alt to the Giants. I was like, okay, well, they signed Daniel Jones for this amount of money. They want to protect him as best they can because he's their business, right? They put their money in Daniel Jones, so they don't want him to get injured. He's their business. They just want him to produce. They don't want to have another Kenny Golladay situation where they sign him for a whole bunch of money for a couple years and he only has 6 touchdowns in 3 or 4 seasons and a couple hundred yards. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I got to thinking. I said, wait a minute. You have Andrew Thomas, and then you have Evan Neal out of Bama. Those are your tackles right now, I think, for the Giants. Mm-hmm. Evan Neal is kind of lackluster. He's a little underwhelming for how high he was drafted, but he's still young. So I started thinking, I was like, maybe they stick with Evan Neal. Maybe they don't replace him just yet. So how can they further help out Daniel Jones? What position will further help out Daniel Jones, Nate?
I mean, if it's not an offensive lineman.
If it's not an offensive lineman, what is it?
I can say either a tight end or a running back. What you thinking?
And I can tell you, I'm thinking neither, Nate. I'm thinking a wide receiver. The Giants wide receiving core, let's be honest. What is it?
Lester, Sterling Shepard is their I think their leading receiver. No disrespect to him and his skill set and his talent, but they don't have a big name receiver on that team to really, that strikes fear into opposing teams and whatnot. And you just lost Saquon Barkley, so you got to figure it out. So let's see. Let me see what that new pick is like.
But you're not about to reach for a running back. You're going to draft the most explosive player in this draft class. You're going to get your big name wide receiver, and you're going to draft Malik Nabers out of LSU.
I was waiting for Malik Nabers to come up,
and he's going to New York.
With the he's a dynamic player. He's a dynamic receiver. You know what? Him and Marvin Harrison are 1 and 1A. I mean, the skill sets of both of these two players, they are pro ready. They're ready to come in and just really compete and learn the nuances of the game. I like this pick. I like this new pick. I mean, I did like the Joe Alt pick as far as wanting to protect your quarterback because Daniel Jones, he took a beating last year. But you just lost Saquon Barkley, who was your top playmaker in your top skill position on your team. You got to find somebody that can replace that talent right there. So I love it. And
so we get into our next pick. So the Titans, they draft Will Levis last year. They're looking like they're going to roll with them. Now, originally, I had them kind of helping out Will Levis in Rome Odunze. And this was before free agency. Let's keep that clear. Now, what wide receiver did they just sign in free agency for about $90 million, Nate?
They just got a good – this is probably – Calvin Ridley is probably one of the best route runners that I've seen.
I love watching him. I hated him in college.
When I say this guy in and out of his breaks, it's like poetry watching him run routes. And he's very, very precise. He's again, his coaching at the University of Alabama, Amari Cooper, some of these receivers, again, when I say that came out of Alabama, can run every route on the route tree. And I just love watching Calvin Ridley.
And so you do not want to draft a rookie wide receiver to come in and kind of possibly, and I'm saying this a big maybe, go in and almost overshadow your $90 million wide receiver you just signed.
Yeah,
That's not a good move. You don't draft a wide receiver, here. So you get somebody who can protect your young quarterback. You go ahead and take the top tackle prospect, Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, and
I
you
re-
protect Will Levis.
I do. Okay.
And so we get to the 8th pick. And originally I had the Cardinals with this. Did I have the Cardinals? Falcons trade up. Chicago. Yeah, I had the Cardinals with this pick. And I had them picking Malik Neighbors because I was like, well, Kyler Murray needs weapons. It's the it's there, it's whatever. So we're saying the Falcons keep this pick. They don't trade up to number 1, and they go ahead and get the best available player. They signed Kirko to a whole bunch of money, and they're liking the weapons he's got in Atlanta. So let's go ahead and fix what else we've been looking for in Atlanta, and that's the defense. So you take the best. We've had all offensive players as first 7 picks. You take the best defensive player in this draft, and you go ahead and draft Dallas Turner, edge out of Alabama.
I love it. And now offense sells tickets. What does defense do?
They win championships.
Exactly. So let's again, and every team aspires to be a championship team. That's why you compete. That's why you do what you do in the offseason. You make the acquisitions you make in free agency. You draft how you draft because again, you're building a team to compete with the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs. You're building a team to unseat them from the top of the throne. And the best way to do it is from the defensive side because it's hard for a team to beat you if they can't score points.
Well, Chicago has this next pick, and so we're going from Atlanta to Chicago. And say we had to take a trip all the way from Atlanta to Chicago, but we couldn't afford a plane ticket, and we couldn't find a plane ticket. We just can't get a plane to get there, so we are resorted to driving. Nate, what are we going to need if we have to drive from Atlanta to Chicago?
Insurance.
We're going to need some good car insurance.
Here's to the grown-ups. Your car is now your office, stage, nursery. Sorry. Erie Insurance offers products that lots of other companies don't. That's a big deal. And it's a good deal, too. And with Erie, you get your own independent agent, not a giant corporate call center or some online robot. You meet with a real person, like this.
Your local Erie agent is Building Block Insurance Group. Get a quote today at 704-464-4544.
Erie Insurance.
And when you call Jeff Fortepney at 704-464-4544, go ahead and ask him who he would draft number 1 overall. And if it's Caleb Williams, I would say give him a pat on the back, but I don't like Caleb Williams in Chicago. So,
all right, okay.
So, Nate, we're going to we're going to Chicago, right?
We're going to Chicago.
Chicago got a couple of draft capitals. It's the 9th overall pick. I kind of cut it in half with the ad.
All right.
So originally, I had Chicago getting the best offensive player, in quotes, Caleb Williams. No, Marvin Harrison Jr. Actually, yeah, best offensive player and the best defensive player in this draft. Well, Dallas Turner's gone. And I was like, well, originally I had Jared Verse here because I said, well, Chicago wants to work on their defense, right? Chicago ended up having a top 5 defense second half of the season. Maybe they're content. Chicago is the type of team that if they're content, they're fine. They're not going to work on it until they see a problem pop up again. Chicago's not the type of team to fix the problem before it occurs. They're the type of team to fix it when the problem happens.
Well,
they
better get it. They better get it together because Green Bay is coming. Detroit is coming. Minnesota is still a viable team. Okay, but Minnesota's still a team. If they can get a quarterback with what they have on that offensive side and whatnot, the NFC North is a competitive division. But I apologize. Go ahead. Let's go ahead and get to it. Cook.
Now, the Chicago Bears are the type of team to not get their oil changed until 10 or 15,000 miles. Now, to put that into perspective, it is advised to get it around 3,000 to 5,000 miles to get
That's
it
right.
changed. Now, the Chicago Bears don't look into the future. Now, if you got your oil light on and your oil needs to be changed, okay, I can ride on it for a couple more days, couple more weeks, couple more months. They're not going to fix it. So they're not going to fix their defense with this pick. Okay, they're not going to fix their defense. They're going to continue to give Caleb Williams more weapons. And I actually talked to Bruce about this the other day. I said, look, if you had to choose, would you want a defensive player or an offensive player with this pick? I love Caleb Williams. I want to give Caleb Williams everything.
Oh,
So that was my best impression of a Chicago Bears fan. So with the new pick, they don't take a defensive player here. They go ahead and kind of wanting to replace Keenan Allen, who's on the wrong side of 30 after this season. They're going to draft Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. And this is what the Chicago Bears will do. Now, if they draft a defensive player right here, it will shock me. It will shock me.
I think it'll be. I think it should be a defensive player.
I think it should too.
I think it should be a defensive player, somebody on the D line, or with somebody in a linebacker, depend on just who's out there. But I think you got to rebuild that defense, and that defense needs to be built because again, we're looking at the Detroit Lions and you're looking at the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love and Jared Goff, who you have to play twice a year. So, I mean, you got to prepare yourself for that. You got to have somebody in there that can actually give them problems. So I don't necessarily agree with the pick, but okay, we're getting to the point where it's too pretty, where we want the offensive weapons and whatnot. But again, you need somebody on defense that's going to stop some things. So again, Rome Odunze is one of the best 50-50 guys. Yes, he is. Yep, we got to take time. We can't just give all the bells and whistles on the offense. This is a team. And again, there's an offensive side and there's a defensive side. We got to address things on the defense. So that's just me,
Well, Nate, we're talking about the Chicago Bears. Let's be for real.
Yes,
they don't use logic. So if I'm using Chicago Bear logic, they'll pick an offensive player here. I think they should pick defense. But
okay.
Let's go on to the next pick. Now, the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays into the game, tears his Achilles. So my original pick was we're going to draft him a tackle to
protect him.
Make sure that's never going to happen again because he's not on the wrong side of 30. He's on the negative side of 30. The man's not even 30 anymore. So we're going to have to literally protect Aaron Rodgers. We need Aaron Rodgers to be fine. Let's keep it there. And I was like, well, I said Jared Versko's number 9. I was like, well, if Jared Verse goes 9, Rome Odunze goes here. Well, I talked to Bruce, the Chicago Bears fan, how Chicago thinks they want an offensive player. They love Caleb Williams so much, they want to give him everything so they know he's not going to be bad.
What happened to Connor?
Did I just leave? Okay. I don't know what just happened. Okay. Excuse me. I don't know where I left off, but they don't want another bad quarterback in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But they picked Rome Odunze. So here, I'm saying you stick with what you had before. You keep Olu Fashanu. Let's stay with it. You got somebody who can protect your 40-year-old quarterback. Let's keep it there.
I love it. I love the pick. I love it. Oh, yeah. Let's go on.
Let's keep going.
Keep cooking.
Now, we have the Vikings. Oh, the Vikings are out. This is like one of my favorite picks. And I thought long and hard about these next picks, Nate. So if you disagree, you either really disagree with it or really agree with it. And we're going to see about these next 3 picks. Now, original pick, Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. They lost to Neil Hunter, right, to free agency. They just ended up signing Jonathan Grenard. So they're okay in the defensive front. And Latu, he had kind of an underwhelming combine. So I don't know if he's even in the top 15 anymore. I don't have him in the top 15 anymore. I kind of having him drop a while. But you know that the Vikings do not re-sign Kirk Cousins. They are in need of a quarterback. But everybody's saying J.J. McCarthy, he's going to the Vikings. He's going to the Vikings. Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, all these guys, Yates, all these guys are saying J.J. McCarthy is going to the Vikings. And although they may be well overqualified and their credentials exceed far beyond what I have been able to accomplish at this day and age, you can't bring J.J. McCarthy to Minnesota. And I'm going to tell you why. If you bring J.J. McCarthy to Minnesota, what does he do? He just got from handing the ball off 20 to 30 times a game in Michigan offense, going to win a national championship, having to throw the ball only 20 times a game, which is not seen in college and which is super low. And you're not going to put him in Minnesota. Minnesota has an air raid offense. Why do you draft somebody who has not proven that they can succeed in an air raid offense to the NFL? Why? It does not make sense. So let's draft a quarterback who can do that. Nate, let me ask you something. What Power 5 conference is the air raid offense most seen in?
Big 12.
Doesn't that A in Pac-12 stand for air raid?
Yeah.
So let's pick a Pac-12 quarterback that we know can be successful in our air raid offense. Let's go ahead and pick Bo Nix out of Oregon. And that's my pick for number 11 to the Minnesota Vikings. And you might not like it.
No.
But guess what? They pick somebody who knows an air raid offense.
Okay.
And they might not have to start. They don't have to start Bo right out the gates. You let him see what he can do in preseason. And if he's good enough, maybe. But you let him sit. It's fine. You just let him sit. And then you kind of bring him out the middle of the season like Will Levis. Next season, bam, he's your starter. Just like the Titans.
Okay. Let's go to the next pick. I don't agree with it, but let's go to the next pick.
You don't agree with it?
I don't agree with it, but let's go to the next pick.
I like this pick. I like it a lot. They don't draft J.J. McCarthy. They draft an air raid quarterback. Now, you go to Bo Nix is awful. Bo Nix isn't bad. I don't think he's awful. But let's go to the next one. We go to Denver. Sean Payton. Sean Payton's country. Let's ride. Let's go. My original pick was J.J. McCarthy. Now, there is a something that all these scouts and analysts are seeing in J.J. McCarthy that Sean Payton saw months ago. Okay? And these guys are just now seeing it. Oh, J.J. McCarthy's the best quarterback in this draft class. Oh, J.J. McCarthy's this, J.J. McCarthy's that. So Sean Payton go ahead and he sticks with his original intuition. He sticks with his gut, and he goes ahead and he drafts J.J. McCarthy because he sees something in him that not everybody else sees but are starting to see, and he makes J.J. McCarthy the starter in Denver.
Okay. What's your next pick?
Oh, this next pick's fun too. Nate, you might disagree with this one too. Now, originally I had Byron Murphy out of Texas, and I don't. Did the Raiders sign a defensive?
They signed Christian Watson.
That's right. They signed Christian Watson. Thank you. I remember Clemson boy. They signed Christian Watson, so they don't need a D tackle. They just put a lot of money in their D tackle position. They put it in Christian Watson. Byron Murphy was kind of Sweat, really his counterpart. Did a lot better than him at the combine. He showed out. So think about it. You just signed Gardner Minshew. You don't sign him for a long-term deal. You don't want him to be your starter. You have Aiden O'Connell. That's your quarterback room in Las Vegas. Okay. Look, they're not going to be your starters they're not going to be your starters forever. Aiden O'Connell, yeah, you said you saw stuff in him that could be a starter potential. Gardner Minshew, he's done stuff for teams that have been beneficial to those teams, but he hasn't gone that extra mile to become and solidify himself as a starter. I love Gardner Minshew. He's from Mississippi, so I'm not saying anything bad. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. So let's fix that, Nate. Now, we had 3 quarterbacks go 1, 2, and 3. We might have 3 quarterbacks go 11, 12, and 13. So the Raiders go ahead and draft Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. And I love this. I love this so much because you have now established, and what I say about Caleb Williams in Chicago, you have now established what in Las Vegas? Healthy competition.
Okay.
You get Michael Penix. Hey, 3 quarterbacks in a room, that's not rare. That's pretty common. People usually have 3 quarterbacks. I love this pick so much, Nate. And I have yet to see somebody I think I was watching Daniel Jeremiah. I think he had Michael Penix going number 13, and I was like, wow, he agreed with me. Cool. That was awesome. But let's keep going. Now, originally, my Saints are up at number 14, and I to keep my heart happy, I just love Jared Verse. I've been saying it since the get-go. He's going to be a New Orleans Saint.
He's a good player.
I want him so bad in New Orleans, but you know how the New Orleans Saints think. We got to draft a tackle with our first pick. A tackle. We got to get an offensive tackle. No. Give me Jared Verse. Keep my little heart happy, and keep Jared Verse in New Orleans. My new pick is Jared Verse out of Florida State. I want him in New Orleans so bad that my mock draft is indicative that he stays in New Orleans. And originally, I had Jared Verse 9, Rome Odunze 10, and then Olu Fashanu 14. That might end up happening if Chicago is smart and picks a defensive player at number 9. And I just love him, and Jack loves him too. I just love him so much, and I want him in New Orleans so bad. Please be across from Chase Young. Cameron Jordan's old. He's on the wrong side of 32.
Oh my God.
We need a Cameron Jordan. We need a Cameron Jordan successor, and it's Jared Verse. Okay, now this next pick is originally the Colts are on the clock, right? They picked Terrion Arnold, and I was like, well, I like Quinion Mitchell, but is Quinion Mitchell the best cornerback in this draft? And I had a debate in my mind. I was like, oh, do I put Quinion Mitchell 15? Do I keep Terrion Arnold 15? What do I do? And I think what I'm going to do, Nate, for the 15th pick, Juju Brents did not pan out how you wanted him to last season. He was injured for a couple games, and he just was kind of underwhelming for how high you drafted him for last draft. So I gotta be a Sean Payton and stick with my gut. JJ McCarthy at number 12. He's seen it all along. I'm gonna stick with Terrion Arnold at 15.
Okay, I like that.
I'm gonna stick with it. I don't want to mess anything up. I think he's a good 15. Now, if they draft Quinion Mitchell, I won't be surprised. But let's go to 16.
Okay.
And this is the last pick for tonight. I know I've talked a lot, and this is one of the most interesting picks of what I have seen in this draft compared to our previous mock draft. Now, originally I had them picking Tyler Guyton, a tackle out of Oklahoma, and I got to thinking, well, a couple years back, they drafted Charles Cross, a tackle from Mississippi State, 9th overall. And then I saw that they had like a 20, I don't even remember how old he was, but he was in his 20s. On the other side of Charles Cross, he's a tackle. And I was like, do you draft another tackle? Is that something you want to do? Do you want to draft another tackle, or do you want to work on that interior line? And so I got to thinking, is there a center, a guard that it could be drafted this high? And there is. But he's not called a center, and he's not called a guard in this draft. A Seattle Seahawks fan commented on our previous mock draft and said, hey, we need to work on that interior line. And I said, actually, let me look into it. And I completely agree with them. They need to work on that interior line. But this next pick is going to throw you off because Tyler Guyton, he's a tackle, right? So with my new pick, they picked Troy Fautanu, tackle out of Washington. You're like, okay.
He was a left tackle, right? If I'm not mistaken, he was a left tackle.
I think so, a left tackle. And wait, Connie, you just said that the Seahawks don't draft a tackle with this pick. Why are you putting him up on there? Hold up. I did my research. I promise I'm not going to make a pick that's not educated. Let's look at Troy Fautanu. Let's look at his size, okay? Now, Troy Fautanu is small for a tackle. He's 6'4". That is like very small that's small for a tackle. His hands are 9.5 inches, small for a tackle. His weight, 317, low for a tackle. And his arms, small for a tackle. Like all these things are small for a tackle. 317, like all these things do not fit a starting tackle in the NFL. But 5.01 40 time. Super fast for a tackle. There's no tackles that have that 40 time. And his 10-yard split is a second, 1.71 seconds. Like fast for tackles. So this is what you do. This is what you do in Seattle. You draft Troy Fautanu. Because look, you have these tackles, right? And okay, maybe the tackle across from Charles Cross doesn't work out. You give Troy Fautanu a couple Happy Meals, you gain him a little bit of weight, and maybe he's a starting tackle. But this is what I think you do in Seattle. You make him lose a little bit of weight. He is completely fast enough to be a guard. 100%. He might be big in college for a tackle, but he is on the smaller side for a tackle in the NFL. So you make Troy Fautanu a guard in Seattle. And
Okay.
this is who Seattle picks at number 16. And that's going to be their next guard. And Jack agrees with me.
I actually agree with that. He could be a monster guard.
He could.
He could be a very, very good guard, and it's not really, of course, the technique is a little bit different, because your kick step, you're not working on ends, you're actually working on three techniques and 4 techniques and 5 eyes. But I think he will be great. I think that transition, if you're going to make that move, you got to transition him the minute he gets to rookie minicamp.
He is almost the perfect weight for a guard in the NFL. Okay. And if we take a look at the highest rated guard right now, which is Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State, weighs 322, which is just about perfect for a guard. And he just about has the same kind of measurements: arm, hands, height, and 40. They're basically identical. And so Cooper Beebe might be the highest ranked guard in this draft class, but really it's Troy Fautanu out of Washington.
I like it.
And that's my first 16 picks.
You hell of a job. I may not agree with the 11, 12, and 13, but a hell of a job. But one of the things that's going to always be hard is to dictate what trades are going to take place. And you never know until the team is on the clock. And there's a team on the clock, and there's a possibility for you to trade up, and you have to give certain draft commodity and certain drafts, certain draft picks and whatnot to get the player that you want that's high on your board. So I do applaud you. I cannot wait to hear pick 17 to 32. This is going to be really, really good. Hell of a job, Connor. Hell of a job.
Thank you. Now, if those top 16 picks change that much, think about how much the next 16 picks could change.
Exactly.
We get into my original pick with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I had them picking a center because before free agency, they were centerless. They had nobody there to fill the spot. So naturally, let's fill that with the draft need because free agency hadn't came. So the only answer to that is to draft one. But eventually, they did find that piece. They ended up signing Mitch Morse after the Bills released him to free up some of their cap space to sign some of their other players. And so the center's off the board. You're not going to – we talked about veteran players learning under or younger players learning under veteran players in free agency, but that's just not the case with the center kind of O-lineman aspect to the game. You really don't see that a lot because once you pick an O-lineman up, it's like, you want it. So they're going to start for you. It's just you don't see it often. MJ says, "What's up, Gator?" So with that being said, the Jaguars are on the clock. What's another need the Jaguars need to fulfill? And so my idea is secondary. Okay, they need somebody in their secondary. Am I thinking safety? I'm thinking cornerback. I'm thinking more of a cornerback. Now their starting quarterback is Tyson Campbell from Georgia right now. That's their starter. And then they have Ronald Darby, who's like a 30-year-old dude, played on a bunch of teams, Eagles, Ravens last year. And so my mind, they're like, okay, Ronald Darby's just here, right? They're here for that kind of veteran leadership in their secondary, but let's get somebody who can learn from that. Let's get somebody who is so versatile, who I've had going a little bit later in this first round, but he showed out a little bit at the combine. I have him going high. I have 17th pick, the first pick of our second half of our mock draft 2.0. The Jaguars select Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. I love him so much. I think he can be that nickel corner for any team. He is so versatile. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was just fantastic.
Okay.
And so to me, you kind of have to have that because eventually, you want Quinion Mitchell. He's so fast, but you keep him for a long time. You might want to convert him to a safety. And we'll just see what that goes. But that's a long time down the road. But for right now, he's going to be your nickel corner in my eyes. And we go on.
Let's go.
So, Bengals are on the clock. We have the Bengals next. And let me make sure. I need to make sure when we can stop. Fournette. Okay. So the Bengals are on the clock, right? You have Joe Burrow. He's injury prone. He's this injury prone dude. And originally I had Talise Fuaga tackle out of Oregon State because you have Joe Burrow, who is just injured after injured. You have signed him. You have given him the most money out of any quarterback.
You gave him a bag.
Giving him a bag. So he makes your money. He brings in your jersey sales. He brings in fans. He brings in all this stuff. Joe Burrow is a hot commodity in Cincinnati. So let's protect Joe Burrow. Let's keep it. So my original pick was this O tackle. And, you can't really go wrong with it. I'm going to keep it. New pick. I'm going to keep Talise Fuaga.
Good.
I misspelled his name here. It doesn't matter. I'm going to keep Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State. Keep him to protect Joe Burrow. Make sure he doesn't get any more injuries, especially since he is the dude. He is your business.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, he is the Cincinnati Bengals business.
Yes.
He is the dude that's bringing in money that you are in turn paying money, and you just got to protect him.
Yeah.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Okay, that's good. That's a good pick. I mean, you got to always protect your franchise, and that's what Joe Burrow is. He's their franchise. You want to keep him upright. I mean, again, if you're going to invest all this money into the quarterback position, you got to invest a lot of money into protecting the quarterback. So that's a good pick.
Okay. So my original pick for the Rams, they're on the clock. I had Bo Nix. And I was like, I like this pick. I really like this pick. I like Bo Nix. They have Stetson Bennett. I just don't think Stetson Bennett's the guy. Whatever. But the Rams ended up signing Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't see any signs of them wanting to sign a rookie quarterback or draft one in the first round. It just wouldn't make sense for me to do that. I just thought Bo Nix would be funny to have on the Rams, and it just doesn't look like that's going to happen. You got Jimmy G. We'll see what Jimmy G does as a backup, and it's whatever. But what did end up happening is the Rams lost arguably one of the best defensive players of all time this past offseason. Aaron Donald decided to retire. He said, hey, look, in 10 seasons, I made 10 Pro Bowls. I did this, that, and the other. I have given everything I have for this game. I'm just kind of burnt out. There's just nothing else I can do. He won a Super Bowl, won 3 Defensive Player of the Years. He's just done so much for the game of football. He just feels like there's nothing more that he can give to the game. So let's find the new Aaron Donald for the Rams. Aaron Donald was like, what, a 10th, 11th overall, 13th maybe overall draft pick? And like,
he's 11th, I think, 11th or 12th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Robbie, tell me.
Robbie knows. Robbie tells. And so we're not at 11 or we're not at 12 or not, but we're a little bit there. We're at 19. So let's pick up a new Aaron Donald. Let's take Byron Murphy the second.
Oh, the D
DT out
tackle
of
from
Tech.
Texas.
Let's take it. I have him falling because kind of his counterpart Sweat had a better combine than he did. He kind of showed out a little bit more. But Byron Murphy is still the guy in Texas. Yeah. So he falls a little bit, but the Rams pick him up. And you don't reach here. I don't think this is a reach by any means for the Rams at 19, but this is the guy you pick up at 19 to replace your retired one of the best defensive players of the year. What do you think?
I like the pick. Arguably, Aaron Donald is arguably he's the best defensive. Him and J.J. Watt, in my opinion, are the 2 best defensive players of this generation that we got a chance to compete against and see. 2 men that compete hard, compete the right way, and just left it all on the field. And 10 Pro Bowls, 9 All-Pros. He has nothing else to prove. He's did everything. 3 Defensive Player of the Years, and on top of that, he has a Super Bowl ring. There's nothing else that he needs to prove.
Nope. And so you pick up your other Aaron Donald, and that's what I have for this pick.
Okay, I like it.
So let's keep going. So 20, I had 2 quarterbacks going back to back. The Steelers, they pick up Michael Penix. You got rid of Kenny Pickett, and this was before they got rid of Kenny Pickett, but I'm just telling you what they did this offseason. Got rid of Kenny Pickett, done. Didn't re-sign Mitchell Trubisky, done. Mason Rudolph went somewhere, done. Your whole quarterback room just done in Steelerland. So you pick up Russell Wilson. You pay him $1.5 million to come to the Steelers because the Broncos have to pay the rest. They incur the largest dead cap hit out of any team in NFL history by releasing Russell Wilson. Crazy. But Then you make a trade. You say, hey, Chicago, I'm going to give you a bag of original, and it's just original, Lay's chips and a Diet Coke for your young Justin Fields quarterback. And that's what they did. They traded a 6th round. It's a conditional 6th round, right? So it could be upgraded depending on what Justin Fields plays. But they figured out, like, hey, we got a quarterback room for the season. They are paying Justin Fields and Russell Wilson $4.5 million for 1 year to come play in Pittsburgh. That is insane. That might be the lowest out of anybody since the 90s, maybe. I don't even know. It's got to be somewhere. I don't know the numbers, but it's got to be somewhere back then. So Michael Penix, we already have him off the board. He went to the Raiders, right, in this mock draft. So they're not going to draft a quarterback. They're not going to get somebody. There's no way they're going to draft somebody on a rookie deal. They're just, unless they want to. It's just, it don't look like they will. So this new pick I have.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking about it, and I had the Jaguars pick this player last, and so because they needed a center, but the Steelers really need a center, so they pick Jackson Powers Johnson, center out of Oregon. They have no good true center. They have a backup center, but right now their starting center is a guard, so they really don't have a true center.
Perfect.
This is your chance to get a true center out of the draft, and this is who you draft out of Oregon.
Fortify that offensive line even more. Get a center or a true center that can actually make the checks, the slide, the protection, so forth and whatnot. Point out the mic, and do all the things that the center position does to help the quarterback. And on top of that, it helps because the direction that the Steelers want. They want to get back to running the ball downhill with Najee Harris. So this right here is a good pick. I like it.
And I think they want to keep Najee Harris as their number one guy, right? He is.
Yes.
I think he might be the only Steelers in history, maybe, to have 4 years of 1,000+ scrimmage yards in a row consecutively.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the stat. I'd have to go look at it. Don't quote me on that, but
I think
it sounds kind of right.
Wrong.
I don't think so. I don't know. I'd have to look at that.
All right,
I have to look at.
We'll come back. We can come back to that one. We can come
I
back.
can look at. I usually do my little my official reviews when we do our trivia. No, Jerome had 637 yards his 3rd year, and this is his first 4 years of the NFL.
Okay, gotcha.
With the Steelers, and and plus Jerome, the Bettis wasn't a Steeler. He wasn't a Steeler till his 4th year.
Yeah,
he was on the Rams. Okay, let's keep going. So the Dolphins are on the clock.
I want to hear this pick.
I kind of was torn from this because I was like, okay, you're gonna get yourself. My original pick was Quincy Mitchell, so you're gonna get yourself a dude that's gonna kind of be your Jalen Ramsey, and I don't know how much longer these older players are gonna be on these teams. It's just hard to tell. I would for me personally, I would love if Cameron Jordan just retired on the Saints. I mean, he's just. The regression from him between 2 years ago and this past year was just, it was kind of like, is he just still a starter? And so that's kind of what I'm feeling. And Jalen Ramsey's still a Dolphin. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's going to skip. He's not skipping a beat yet. I think he's still the guy. So I just don't see him picking a corner first round. They might end up drafting one in the later rounds. I just don't see it right here. But they kind of are in the Steelers situation where they don't have a center, and it's not that they don't have a center. They don't have a center at all on their depth chart. They purely have guards right now on their depth chart. I looked at it earlier. The Steelers actually still have a center at their backup, but the Dolphins just have no center. So I think that's what they do. Like, you have to pick a center. Maybe you trade up and get Jackson Powers Johnson if you feel so strongly about him. But if you don't, because we're not going to have trades on here, it's too hard to predict them. Let's pick up the next best guy. I say you pick Graham Barton, center out of Duke. I like this pick. I think it's a little bit of a reach. I didn't have Graham Barton going this high. until I started looking at his stuff.
Yeah, I'm going second round. Yeah, I'm going second round.
Early, or either really late or early second round. But the Dolphins need a center so bad, so you have to reach here because I think that the Dolphins don't have a day 2 pick. I don't think they have a day 2 pick. I'd have to look at that. If they do, it's only the 3rd round if they have a day 2 pick. So for you to have to go and trade up early second round would be so difficult because you don't have any day 2 picks, or if you have a late day 2, it's just hard for you to draft up. So you reach here. You have to reach here. You pick what you need, and that's a center.
All right. I like it. I agree.
So the Eagles are on the clock, the 22 pick. And originally I had Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. I love this guy. He's the fastest cornerback out of all the prospects. He stays on you like white on rice, right? Mom's a big Clemson fan. Watched him in college. He's pretty good. He was a big factor on why those Florida State receivers were held to as little as they were when Clemson and Florida State were really, really close this year. And so you just can't kind of disagree with that. Like I tried when I went back over this mock draft, my last mock draft, I said, okay, what do I need to change? What needs to change and what needs to stay? And these were one of the picks that was like, does this guy need to stay here? And if he needs to change, why? But you have somebody like Darius Slay. He's 33 years old. I love Darius Slay, but it's just like he got injured his last game this past postseason. It's like, how much does Big Play Slay have left in his tank? At 33 years old, you're still playing quarterback, competing with these 24-year-old wide receivers. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it.
It's just taking care of yourself. But now for Slay, the game is more mental. He knows so much. It's again, you study, you see it all. The game is more of a mental chess match than it is. If the physical attributes, they play a big part of it, but now it's more the mental side where your mental is sharper. So it allows you to, the limitations of, like, again, you're not as fast as you was when you're in your 20s. Again, so it teaches you how to use the abilities that you have for your betterment.
So for the new pick for the Eagles, I decided to stay true. Big Play Slay might be gone in Philadelphia, Nate, but let's pick Big Play Nate. That's what I want in Philadelphia next. That's the next big player. And he's not super big. Nate Wiggins is a little small for a cornerback. He's not terrible. He's kind of average, but he's super fast. He's going to stay on you like white on rice. Big Play Slay, he'll still be there. You get somebody to learn under him.
This is the deal. Just what you just said. You bring in a player that can learn how to be a pro. A lot of guys have to learn how to be pros and consummate pros when they come from college. That jump from college to the NFL, that's not an easy hop, skip, and a walk in the park. It's a huge there's a huge jump from when you go from the collegiate level to the NFL level. There's a huge jump, and you have to be able to acclimate yourself to be able to maintain and compete with these guys.
I agree. I love the fact of younger people sitting behind older talent, because that's just what it's supposed to. Even in college, like, I love Arch Manning. I think that he is super loyal. He's playing the game right. I love Arch Manning. Look, he could have went anywhere. He did not have to stay in Texas. He could have transferred like that, just like every other player in college has. I don't start, I transfer. NIL, I transfer, I make money, like all this stuff. Arch Manning decided he's not going to start this year, right? Texas is still going to start Quinn Ewers this year, but Arch Manning said, hey, I'm going to still stay and learn behind this dude that has this much experience in starting quarterback in college. I want that. I want that learning. I want that teaching. And I'm not going to leave to try and experience it myself. Because we learn best from seeing the mistakes our parents made than to just be thrown in the deep end without any floaties. And you can't swim, Nate.
Thank you for letting everybody know. But also, you know what? One of the things that we also have to take into consideration, you know, you can tell that Arch Manning, he wants to learn and wants to be the best that he can be and utilize the talents that he has. And with Steve Sarkisian over there at Texas, he's going to learn. He's going to learn, and hit that learning is going to help him translate into an amazing college football player, and it's going to possibly translate into him being an amazing NFL prospect. So, I mean, again, you know, we have to give credit where credit is due. Sark knows what he's doing when it comes to quarterbacking. Yeah, Steve was a quarterback. He played the position, so he understands the nuances of the position. So, I mean, I, again, applaud young Arch Manning for just, again, sometimes being patient is hard.
Especially when you're the son of
Yeah,
a Manning.
you're a man.
You know, you're Manning. So I love how he's playing the game. I would hate to see him not be successful after all this time. I would hate it. But let's go to more college players. So originally, Houston had the 23rd pick. Let me see who I have. Yes, I had them picking Troy Fautanu because I loved his versatility on the O-line. I thought that it would be great for C.J. Stroud. Well, the Texans ended up trading their pick to the Minnesota Vikings.
Mhm.
And so we can say, hey, the Vikings have 2 first-round draft picks. They just acquired this draft capital. Are they going to trade up for a quarterback, the position they need the most? Well, we can ask ourselves that question, and they might end up doing it. But our 2.0 mock draft, we have the Vikings taking Bo Nix. They're going to take a young quarterback, but they need somebody to protect that young quarterback in Minnesota. Let's pick an O lineman. Troy Fautanu is off the table. I like Tyler Guyton, tackle out of Oklahoma. I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he was just tossing around defenders. It was crazy to see him. And I like him. I think he'll be a first-round draft pick. He went to the Senior Bowl. I think his draft stock rose up, and teams like the Vikings are noticing it. They're saying, hey, we want this dude to block and protect our young quarterback that we just drafted, and this is going to be our guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like it. I like it.
And this pick, this going to be my last pick before we get to our ad. I love this pick so much. I was like, well, this pick just makes so much sense. And it's going to be kind of like this Dolphins pick, but you just got to bear with me. So the Cowboys are on the clock. And originally I had them picking a Edgerrin Cooper, who's a edge rusher out of Texas A&M. I like the way he played. I was like, well, he's not going to be far from home. And it's going to be whatever. It's just like he's going to be good. He's going to be good for – they lost Leighton Vander Esch, and they kind of want that person that can still run, keep their zone coverage, but can also be on the line if they want to. I thought Edgerrin Cooper was just the guy for it. But I started looking and saying, look, you can get a linebacker in later rounds, and you could get this guy in later rounds, but you reach here. You have to reach here. And so what is the Cowboys' biggest need on their depth chart? In my opinion, I asked myself that question. What is their biggest need? What is their biggest need? Their starting running back right now is Rico. I don't even know. Dowdle. I mean, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Even if that's, I'm sorry if I butchered it, Rico. But dude, Rico's not going to be the starter for the Dallas Cowboys. So let's take a page out of the Falcons book. Who did the Falcons draft with their pick last year in the first round? You remember? Oh, he's a super.
Running back out of Texas.
What's his name?
Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson. So who's the guy that didn't necessarily split with him, but he learned from him, and he did really good this past season. So the Cowboys, with their new pick, they draft Jonathan Brooks, running back out of Texas. This is who I think is the best running back in this draft class. You reach here. This is your biggest need, in my opinion. Your biggest need by far. You reach here. You have to reach here. This is your biggest need, and this dude will be your starter. You don't start Rico. You don't start 5'5" Deuce Vaughn, who you signed because his dad works with you in your organization. You draft Jonathan Brooks, so you know who can play, and you start him in Dallas.
I like it.
What you think?
I like it.
What you think about the reach, though? Because we're kind of reaching here. And look, Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's take this into consideration. Jahmyr Gibbs was not on anybody's radar to be picked in the first round, and analyst wise, nobody but Bijan Robinson was the only running back to go in the first round. Okay, and all of a sudden the Lions, boom, we see Jahmyr Gibbs taking him at number 12. I think that's what they drafted him at. It can be the same, and we saw how good he was. It can be the same thing with Jonathan Brooks.
Okay.
And we're reaching here. But Nate, I need to reach for this guy's card because I don't really remember what he offers me in terms of insurance. Can you tell me what this man we're about to put up offers us?
I can't even pronounce Jeff's last name. Still.
Fortetny. He offers us some really good car insurance.
Really good car insurance.
That we can reach for.
Here's to the grown-ups. Your car is now your office, stage, nursery. Sorry, Erie Insurance offers products that lots of other companies don't. That's a big deal, and it's a good deal too. And with Erie, you get your own independent agent, not a giant corporate call center or some online robot. You meet with a real person, like this.
Your local Erie agent is Building Block Insurance Group. Get a quote today at 704-464-4544.
Erie Insurance.
And when you call Jeff Fortetny at 704-464-4544, go ahead and ask him what he thinks about the Cowboys reaching for Jonathan Brooks in the first round. If he likes it, you'll probably like his car insurance too. So let's keep going, Nate.
Let's go.
Packers have the 25th pick in the draft. I saw this thing about, and this has nothing to do with my draft pick, but it is draft related. How they drafted Jordan Love. I saw. You ever watched The Office?
No.
No, you never watched The Office.
Oh, you talking about the TV show?
The TV show.
Yeah.
You know Kevin from The Office.
Yeah.
Drops his chili.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's actually like a big, I don't know if he's a Packers fan, but he's a big football fan. And he was talking about the Packers and he was like, man, everybody needs to see what the Packers are doing in terms of Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, And so he was like, well, they don't draft a quarterback super early with their picks because they're a good enough team to where they can put a young quarterback in a situation where they're not going to fail, right? Where they can learn behind somebody that's already been successful in the Packers system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Packers have a later draft pick, and even though you can't necessarily do that with this because your quarterback's most important position on the field, so that's kind of the science you want to have behind that. So to not have that science for this pick because you need this position, I'm thinking they need a secondary position. The Packers, which my original pick, I need to put that up there first. They need a secondary position. Cooper DeJean, PFF, he's the number 1 ranked cornerback in this draft by PFF. So take that with a grain of salt. I mean, I don't think PFF says who's the best corner realistically, but they give us an idea of how the numbers work. And so they say Cooper DeJean's the best. So the Packers, they need a secondary. They signed Xavier McKinney as their safety. And it's like, well, do you want to draft the safety with the first pick? Do you want to reach for a safety? I don't see a safety being picked this low in the first round, a good safety. Maybe the Packers do. So honestly, I stay with Cooper DeJean. I like this pick. I think he's a Packer. I like him. I like him in a Packer green uniform, and I'm going to stick with it. I don't have any problem with it.
Okay.
So I like it. So I stick with it. And so we keep going. And with the 26th pick, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Originally, I had Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. And so a lot of the times when I go back and look at my mock drafts, I say, hey, what did they do to fulfill the position they need in free agency?
Yeah.
And if the answer is, okay, they fulfilled the position, I look at it as how effective is that person going to be in that position? Now, they have had Mike Evans for a long time, very long time. He's one of the dudes they got drafted with Aaron Donald that is still kicking. And he got signed to a 2-year extension worth like $56 million or something crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how much left does Mike Evans have in the tank?
I think you got to He got a solid another 3 solid seasons. Then, like right now with this pick right here, I would agree with this pick because you're going to bring somebody in where he can actually teach them how to play the game and whatnot. But Mike Evans, make no mistake, Mike Evans, he's something special still.
And I would have to agree with you. I like the fact that they're going to bring in a wide receiver, let them learn. We would have never guessed that some of those receivers that went to some of those teams, like even Quentin Johnson, right, who went to the Chargers in the first round last draft. We said, hey, they have Keenan Allen, they have Mike Williams, they have all these dudes. Why are they drafting somebody? And eventually it was their game plan, to the next season to kind of rebuild that offense. They got rid of Keenan Allen, they got rid of Mike Williams. And so now they had that Quentin Johnson first round draft pick move up in their depth chart to say, hey, he learned from these 2 really good wide receivers we've had in our franchise, in our system this long, that maybe he can be those replacements. And realistically, he should. So with that in mind, let's stay. Let's keep our pick. Let's keep Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. Hey, he's going to learn under Mike Evans. We're going to say Mike Evans has been in this system for so long that eventually when we get rid of him, either he retires or we just decide we don't want him anymore because of his age, we have this dude that can move up in the depth chart and be our number 1, number 2 guy.
I like it.
So let's keep it. Okay. Next, Cardinals, I think. Yeah, the Cardinals are next on the clock. And originally I had JC Latham draft, and I liked it because it's like you still had an injured Kyler Murray. I didn't know who I wanted here. And then I started looking at their depth chart. I was like, well, they just got in free agency, they got Jonah Williams at the tackle. And I'm just thinking, well, they're probably not going to get a tackle then. If they just got somebody like Jonah Williams, he's going to start. They have Paris Johnson Jr. they drafted last draft, and their other side, they're not going to get a tackle. So what do they need? They just got a wide receiver earlier in the draft per our mock draft. And so let's be what the Chicago Bears should have done. Let's do what the Chicago Bears should have done. We should have got a really good offensive player and a really good defensive player. So the Cardinals do just that. So they get somebody who I think they need. They need an edge. This guy falls pretty hard. I had him in like the number 11 pick in the last mock draft. Laiatu Latu, edge out of UCLA. I have him going to the Cardinals. I could easily see Chop Robinson at a Penn State here too. I like him too. I just don't know if he's a first rounder. I could see it's just whatever the team likes. The team likes Latu. He kind of fell because of his combine. But I have him here. I think he's the next best edge, and that's who the Cardinals decide to pick up.
Okay. I can't necessarily say I disagree with that pick. Again, you sharpening up your defense. So, okay, yeah, you're going to need to be able to sharpen up your defense because you're in that NFC West with San Fran, the Rams, the Seahawks. I mean, you've got to have a nice defense going against those high-powered offenses. So, okay.
The Cardinals are definitely the weakest link in that division, but maybe they'll be able to pick something up. There's talks about Kyler Murray going to the Vikings, all this sort of stuff. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have to see draft night what ends up happening. But let's keep going so we don't run out of time. The Bills are on the clock, and originally I had Brian Thomas, wide receiver at LSU. I like this pick. I think he's a Bill. He looks like a Buffalo Bill. I like him. You need a number 2 wide receiver. Gabe Davis leaves. You just don't know what's going to happen. And you're thinking, hey, Stephon Diggs just led the league in receiving not last season, Tyreek Hill. In a couple seasons, he led the league. And it's like, a while ago. And you're like, well, Stephon Diggs. He's kind of unhappy in Buffalo. He doesn't know if he wants to stay or go on or do whatever. And it's like, man, how long are you going to be able to have Stephon Diggs? How long are you going to be able to have somebody learn under Stephon Diggs? So you have to take this opportunity while you can, because if it's in the future that Stephon Diggs is not a part of Buffalo anymore, you got to have somebody learn behind him while you can. So let's stick with the pick, the new pick, Brian Thomas Jr. Let's stick with it. Let's have him learn under Stephon before Stephon maybe leaves Buffalo. And so he can be your number 1 or number 2 guy in these next coming seasons.
Yeah, because that window in Buffalo is closing. And that window.
Oh, it is. It is very close.
I feel like the window closed. To be honest with you, my opinion, the window closed 13 seconds. That
So
window.
do you,
Window closed a couple years ago.
do you see Stephon Diggs leaving Buffalo?
Yes. And if I'm I hate to say it, if I'm Coach McDermott and I'm the front office brass in Buffalo, you can get you a nice draft pick for Stephon Diggs. You can get a good draft pick for.
We
Stephon.
saw AJ Brown traded to the Eagles for a first round draft pick.
You can get you a good draft pick for a Stephon Diggs. I'm just throwing it out there.
But that means you would have to draft a wide receiver.
Yeah, this pick I love. I love this pick. I mean, that's why I say I love this pick. The reality of it is I love this pick because he can learn under Stephon. Yet the flip side to the pick is if you want to get some draft capital for Stephon Diggs because he's still producing, hey, it's a win-win. So let's go to that next pick because I don't want to take up too much time.
So the Lions are on the clock. Originally, I had Darius Robinson, defensive end out of Missouri. I just love the fact that you have Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson is so consistent. I love him. Don't want to say that too loud in case Kenny's watching, or Kenny will eventually see this. I think he is great for Detroit. I think he was a great draft pick. He arguably should have probably been picked number 1 that draft class. Travon Walker, and kind of underwhelming for number 1 draft pick, but Aiden Hutchinson has been doing his work. He's been doing good. So in my mind, it's like you really have a chance to have somebody on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson and cause trouble. This dude is huge. I've seen him in real life. He is humongous. We started seeing Kirk Franklin together whenever he was off the camera, whenever we finished interviewing. We just seen Kirk Franklin having a good time, just doing what me and Darius do. So with the new pick, the Lions are on the clock. They still need an edge. So we keep Darius Robinson. I could see Chop Robinson here again. I like Chop Robinson too. Darius Robinson, textbook line. If I showed you a picture of this guy, you could see this guy in a Lions uniform. He goes from a Tiger to a Lion. Like he was on the Tigers. He stays with the Pride. He's in the same Pride when he goes to Detroit. Okay. It's not far from Missouri. And Darius Robinson, textbook line, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I love it.
All right, what's up? What you got pick 30 for me?
Okay, so the Ravens are on the clock with 30. And originally I had Ennis Rakestraw Jr. And when I was making the second one, I just kept flipping back. I was like, okay, what cornerback do I want here? They need a cornerback, and I want a cornerback in Baltimore with this pick. This is the best chance you have to get a higher cornerback of this draft class because there are few cornerbacks that are really, really good in this draft class because not a lot of them are going to be drafted super high, and like we saw last year. And so you got to pick them while you can. So you have a chance to get one of the best cornerbacks in this draft class, and I thought Ennis Rakestraw Jr. was going to be that dude. So when I look back at it, Ennis Rakestraw is like he stands about 6 foot. And so when I was looking back at it, I was like, well, let me look into it. Historically, the Ravens are known for picking bigger corners. They like their big body corners. They just love them. And so I was 6 foot, a big body corner. I just didn't know if Ennis Rakestraw would be drafted this high. And so, I just wanted to change my pick. I didn't like this for the Ravens. I didn't know if he was going to be a Raven. And so I changed it. And if you saw the thumbnail, Nate, you would know exactly who this pick would be. And so with the new pick, the Ravens pick Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama. The Kool-Aid man is on our thumb. Yes, the Kool-Aid man is on our thumbnail for tonight. I love Kool-Aid. And he's not much bigger than Ennis Rakestraw. He's about 6'1", I think. Let me look at his weight. He's about 6'1", and he's not super big.
All I care about is the Tide, baby, the Tide.
And he's 194. So he's bigger in weight wise, and he's a little taller than Ennis Rakestraw. And so I just like this pick. I liked him in Rob said don't say Roll Tide. And I think Kool-Aid's a Raven. And the Ravens are going to be drinking some Kool-Aid in Baltimore.
Okay.
So let's go on with our next pick.
Go.
We're doing pretty good on time. So, 31, the first losers of this past season, San Francisco 49ers. I'm not a big 49ers fan. I don't like the 49ers. I don't like them.
Gang. Bang, bang,
Yeah,
bang.
I don't like them. I never liked them. The first NFL game I ever went to, the Niners beat the Saints, and I didn't like Colin Kaepernick then. I sure don't like Colin Kaepernick now, and so I just don't like the 49ers. And so originally I had them picking Braden Fisk out of Florida State. He was a very versatile defensive tackle. It's like he learned one thing for the whole week on one defense for the one team at the Senior Bowl. And then the day of the game, he got a call and said, "Hey, can you swap over to our defense, the other team?" And he was like, "Yeah, I can do that." He ended up winning defensive MVP because his IQ level was just so high that he could just swap like that and learn an entirely new defense.
There you go.
And it was so good. And so if he's not a first round draft pick, he's going to be super early in the second round. So whoever wants a player like that, you're going to have to trade up in that second round, early day two. But the 49ers ended up getting Malik Collins from the Texans in the free agency. And so they have Javon Hargrave at their starting D tackle. And it's like, well, you're not going to get a D tackle. You're not going to draft a D tackle unless you wanted somebody to learn behind those two. But unless you want Braden Fisk, this is a dude that you're going to want to start. You don't want to have him sit behind somebody. This is just somebody you want to start, in my opinion. So my new pick, let's protect our quarterback. You have one pretty good solid tackle, but you don't have a really good other one. So I like J.C. Latham for this pick right here. I like it right here. I like a tackle for this one. And so that's who the Niners picked to protect their Brock Purdy. I don't know how much longer Brock Purdy will be in San Fran. A lot of people don't like him, think he's a glorified system quarterback. That's another debate for another day. But let's pick up somebody that can protect any quarterback that's going to run that San Francisco system. And you could have A.J. McCarron if you wanted to. And I think the 49ers would probably be just as good. I mean, you saw how Jimmy G was when he went to another system after the 49ers.
Yeah. You got a point.
It's just maybe Sam Darnold can be good. I don't know. I just like an O lineman here. This O line draft is stacked. You just pick one. You pick them up.
Okay.
And so
last pick.
The last pick. The Chiefs, originally I had Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. And so let's look at their free agency. Let's look at what the Chiefs did this past free agency. They ended up signing, I think it was a trade for Hollywood Brown. And that's going to be kind of Patrick Mahomes' new deep threat. Kind of Hollywood Brown. And you can do a lot with Hollywood Brown. He was the number one guy. He could do a lot. He can run the X. He can do a lot. So I don't mind however they use and choose to use Hollywood Brown. So, but it's like you have Rashee Rice too, who ended up being a really good rookie this past season. I liked Rashee Rice. I think he was going to end up drafting him in fantasy, and he paid out for me. But we saw what's been happening with Rashee Rice. You know what's been happening with Rashee Rice?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So, we still got to find out everything. It's just unfortunate.
We do. It's unfortunate. And so we don't know if Rashee Rice is going to come back for the season or if he's going to get suspended or what's going to happen. So in my mind, it's like, do the Chiefs want to draft a wide receiver here still? And so it's like, well, if you decide to kick out Rashee Rice, you're going to have Hollywood Brown play that X, right? You're going to have Hollywood Brown play the slot. And that's the only way you can look at it. So Patrick Mahomes needs his deep threat. I told you that my buddy's a big Florida State guy. He said when a jump ball gets thrown up to Keon Coleman, it's not called a jump ball. It's not called a 50-50 ball. Guess what it's called, Nate? A Keon Coleman ball. So with the new pick, we're staying with Keon Coleman. I like him with the Chiefs uniform. He's going to be Patrick Mahomes' new deep threat in Kansas City.
Wow. Okay.
And that concludes our 2.0.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I must say, you know what? I like it. Some of the picks, I wouldn't, some of them educated reaches, I mean, I can see it. I can see it, like, and whatnot. But again, I actually, your first 16 picks, you was on fire. Now it's kind of hard, that next 16, because we can't fathom like what trades are going to occur and everything and whatnot. Draft day trades. That's the only thing. Again, that's the only variable of the equation that we won't know, but it's the unknown. But I love your picks because again, you're picking from again what the team needs, adding up and also factoring in free agency. So I love it. You might be a GM in your in your future. You might be.
I'd have to watch draft day a couple more times if I want to be a GM. I wouldn't mind being a GM. Shoot, put me anywhere in that organization. I'd be a coach. I'd do anything.